Toy Story 2, Pixar's blockbuster sequel, came out in November of 1999, and the very same month, a video game tie-in was released on several platforms. The one released on Sony's mighty PlayStation will be the main subject of this video, but I'll also briefly talk about the other versions at the end. I covered the first Toy Story game for Sega Genesis a while back, and while it isn't perfect, it's a very solid and enjoyable experience that is much more ambitious in concept than the overwhelming majority of media tie-ins, which, as we probably all know, are often pretty low effort. While the game version of Toy Story 2 is nothing like the first one conceptually, it too is a cut far above the average movie-game adaptation, and a game I personally consider a bona fide PS1 classic. At a glance, this is just a generic early 3D platformer, but it's done so well in nearly every way that it doesn't matter, and the game does boast one major hook that sets it apart from the pack: the totally distinct platforming experience of feeling like a toy. Yes, every level in the game is built around capturing that feeling. Whether you're scaling up and transversing across the aisles of a toy store as if they're massive mountain ranges, or dodging the splashes of boiling water and avoiding burning your ass on the stove while making your way across the top of a kitchen counter, to then use the fridge as a platform to get up on the cabinets. Every level in the game achieves the goal of making you feel like a toy in its own creative way. Each level is not only unique in its theming, that's easy to achieve, but in its fundamental framework. Some are built around one massive structure, like the tree in Andy's neighborhood, or the moving airplane which is the centerpiece of Tarmac Trouble. Others are much more compact, like the one that's built around an elevator shaft, where, for the most part, the only place to go is up. So yeah, if you haven't figured it out by now, this game sees you playing as Buzz Lightyear, with a fully functional laser capable of blasting enemies to shreds, adventuring through fully 3D environments, most of which creatively based on locations from the movie, with the goal of collecting all 5 of each location's Pizza Planet tokens. These tokens are the game's primary collectible, and collecting them is how more levels get unlocked. Each level includes one token which is gained by defeating a mini-boss, one which is earned by collecting 50 coins and exchanging them with Ham, one will be a race or some other type of timed challenge, one is a wild card that could just be hidden somewhere hard to reach or require solving a puzzle to access. And finally, each level has 5 little hidden characters scattered throughout to collect and bring back to whomever lost them. For instance, the first level, Andy's house, sees Buzz returning Bo Peep's lost sheep.
My name is Little Bo Peep, and I have lost my cowlicks.
What? It's a 3D platformer on PS1. You didn't think I'd work in a Spyro reference? Speaking of Spyro, when I'm thinking about this game, I can't help be reminded of a remark Insomniac Games CEO Ted Price made when discussing the development of the first Spyro game. The relatively small dev team had a Nintendo 64 in their workspace where they would play Super Mario 64 for inspiration. Price used the term toy factor to explain why it was fun just to run and jump Mario around the 3D environments without paying mind to the game's actual objectives. That specific analogy may be a bit on the nose for a game in which you literally are a toy! But I think it fits. Just exploring these levels is a blast in and of itself, and the laser is super fun to use, especially when it's charged up. And when you get this green laser power-up, man, you just feel like a god! Buzz's spin attack is a little clumsy though. I don't really find myself using it at all until near the end of the game, where many of the enemies and bosses are immune to your laser. So yeah, my description of how to earn the Pizza Planet tokens could have given the impression that the gameplay is repetitive. And it kind of is, but the game does a decent enough job of disguising the repetition. Like in this level where the timed challenge is combined with platforming. Overall, I prefer this approach to the approach the first Toy Story game took, which included so much gameplay variety that certain levels suffered in their execution. The level of challenge found in Toy Story 2 is really great for a kid's game. Right from the get-go, in the very first level, we get some genuinely tough platforming. Keep in mind, collecting every single token isn't necessary to simply progress through the levels, so things like this give older players a decent degree of challenge, while being optional for the kiddies. At least until they get deeper in the game and need more and more tokens in order to continue progressing. There's really a fair amount of tough platforming all throughout the game, but the difficulty is balanced by the complete absence of fall damage and the near complete absence of bottomless pits, and sometimes there are unlockable shortcuts. For instance, the construction level has these switches you can activate while scaling the unfinished building. There's one at the halfway point and one at the top, so if you fall off, you can hitch a ride on this platform instead of having to tediously start all over. But since there are only 2 of these switches, it isn't made too easy. Speaking of challenge, let's flash back to something I said when reviewing the first Toy Story game on Sega Genesis. The most mind-blowing thing of all is that the game doesn't even refill your life bar after you beat a level. I have never heard of a game that doesn't do that. Yeah, about that. I had totally forgotten that this game, Toy Story 2, doesn't refill your life bar in between levels either. That being said, it's nowhere near as easy to take damage in Toy Story 2 as it is in the original, so it isn't as noticeable. I actually didn't die even once until the truly ridiculous final boss fight, but that isn't much of a complaint, because as I've already touched on with the platforming, there is challenge to be found here. In addition, solving puzzles and finding collectibles are, for the most part, not insultingly easy, and sometimes even kinda tricky as far as kids' games go. So even though it's easy to get through the game without dying much, it still isn't a game you can just blast your way through with no effort. It only took me 4 or so hours to beat it 100%, but that's totally okay in my book. Not every game needs to pack in hours upon hours of gameplay. When I see game companies today boast in their marketing that whatever they're currently selling includes over 100 hours of gameplay, it just makes me wonder why on earth I would want to play one single game for that freaking long. The only part in Toy Story 2 that really makes me feel like I'm playing a game for babies is speaking to Rex to receive hints. By hints, I mean Rex literally tells you exactly what to do in order to get each of the tokens in the level. But that's not really a complaint, since talking to him is completely optional. Now that I've heaped a decent amount of praise onto this game, and I'm not done yet by the way, it's time to admit that I have a ton of nostalgia for it, because it's the first game that I ever owned. I'm 100% confident though that I'd still like it even if I didn't play it as a kid, for all of its genuine merits that I've already covered and still more that I'll get to. But I can't talk about this game without reminiscing on childhood memories. To this day, when someone says the phrase video game to me, one of the first images that comes into my brain is this: the opening screen from the first level of Toy Story 2. Not only one of my earliest gaming memories, but one of my earliest memories, period.
I wanna go back.
I distinctly remember the tin robot in the attic being my first ever boss battle, with the plane in the third level almost certainly being my second. I seem to remember that scaling the tree to get to the kite boss in the second level was something that took me a really long time to do. But anyway, the plane boss was so hard to me back then. Now it takes me like 30 seconds to blow him to pieces. I also remember getting this victory screen after finally beating it and thinking that boss was the plane's name. I was such a stupid kid, didn't even know the meaning of the word boss in a video game context. What a noob. Anyway, in case you haven't noticed already, the game's original soundtrack is lit. One of my absolute favorites on the PS1. If I've been talking too loudly for you to tell, just listen for a moment. Please, humor me. Some of my favorite levels include Andy's house and Al's penthouse, both of which manage to create cool platforming, obstacles, and puzzles out of normal household objects and architecture, as well as Al's toy barn and Al's Spaceland. The mere idea of platforming through a toy store or a video arcade as Buzz Lightyear is just super appealing to me. The outdoor levels don't appeal to me as much though. There's just a lot of dead space in them, if that makes sense. Also, basically every level features some modifiable elements, and the indoor levels is where this really shines. You get to literally flood the bathroom in Al's penthouse as a means to make your way to the top of it. So cool. The attention to detail found in this game is really just astounding. Enemies react to your every move, which wasn't super common in 1999. There were still a lot of games coming out where enemies paced the same predetermined paths again and again, waiting to be killed. Check out this guy dodging my laser. I've always thought these enemies looked like the guy from the Atari game Hero, and look at the lens flare you can see off of Buzz's helmet when you're running around. There's a reflection of Buzz's face when you're aiming your laser at enemies. The arcade has actual games on screen instead of static images. The tire on the airplane says "bad ear." The idle animations just make me smile. There are options for the controls. I didn't really use them in this game, but it's nice when they're included. Every game should include them. I just wish you could program the shoulder buttons to shoot like in modern games. But oh well, at least it's something. The map screen has an iconic, artsy, colored pencil style to it with identifying sound effects for each level, and man, this game just oozes atmosphere. Atmosphere is something that's hard to describe, but when you play a game with atmosphere, you just know. It has atmosphere. So now that I've praised this game to death, it's time to air some grievances. Because there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it, most aspects are quite excellent in fact, it's going to sound like I'm just reading off a list of nitpicks. I basically am. So let's go. Backtracking is implemented quite poorly in this game. In certain levels, you're tasked with finding a body part of Mr. Potato Head's that will unlock a power-up gadget, enabling you to access new areas and complete previously uncompletable missions in previous levels. That's all well and good, but every level resets itself upon entering to do that. For example, in Alleys and Gullies, I was able to find 4 out of 5 of the missing ducks, but couldn't get the last one without the rocket boots. Upon returning to the level, I had to re-find the previous ducks all over again, which is a real bummer and gives me PTSD flashbacks to that damn dirty alchemist in Spyro 2. Why is Spyro coming up so much in this review? The controls for the most part are extremely tight and responsive, but I swear sometimes the jump button does not register. Enemies respawn too quickly, which can knock off the pace of platforming a bit. Later enemies can take entirely too many hits to kill. Look at this. I always prefer it when games make later level enemies stronger by making them faster or making them deal more damage. This is just tedious. There's no dual analog support in this game, much like in... Never mind. You use the shoulder buttons to adjust the camera. It works fine, but let's face it, it's dated. The game gives you the option of active or passive camera mode. I found passive to be a much better option. I'd rather control the camera myself in this game because in my experience, active mode just makes it spaz out constantly. Unlike in Spyro, damn it, I'm referencing Spyro again, where I greatly prefer active mode. It works a lot better in those games. The camera in Toy Story 2 is very good for the most part though, especially for its era. Going back to these old PS1 or N64 games can often be frustrating due to finicky cameras, but it only gave me serious trouble once, in Al's Toy Barn. You may not be able to tell what's going on here, but the camera is stuck on the solid wall behind me and is literally pushing Buzz around the screen. Truly bizarre. I had no idea what was going on at first. It was like someone took the controller out of my hands. The NPCs are extremely annoying. They spit out the same repetitive nonsense phrases constantly, and it's the #1 pet peeve I have with this game. Elevator hop is a pretty tedious level. Jumping to and from each elevator to get to the top takes way too long, and the placement of this mouse in the shaft is just ridiculous. And it moves so fast you don't know where to aim your jump. Getting it is basically luck. Thankfully, this level also includes one of those shortcut switches at the top. The final level, Tarmac Trouble, is also a bit off. You have to use the airplane it's built around to access the higher up areas, and a large portion of the time I spent in this level was simply waiting for the plane to take me where I needed to go. The final boss battle is anticlimactic. It's just 3 of the mini-bosses you've already faced, but all at once. They spam their attacks incessantly, lasers don't work on them so you have to spin at them. I couldn't figure out any real strategy. I just bull rushed with reckless abandon and used up the lives I had been stockpiling. Yeah, this is where I learned that death in this game is handled very weirdly. As long as you have extra lives, you just keep right on going from where you died. You respawn so quickly I didn't even know what hit me the first time it happened. There's nothing to do after the final boss, except collect the rest of the Pizza Planet tokens if you haven't already. I think some of the FMV cutscenes I saw wouldn't have played had I not completed it 100%, but a further reward, a bonus level like you get in many other games, would have been nice. Ultimately, this is a great game, and you don't have to care about Toy Story at all to get into it. I would call it overlooked or an underrated gem or whatever, but I think more and more people are discovering it and catching on to how great it is. It really would be nice if all licensed games had this much care and attention put into them, and this good of a usage of their respective licenses. Now let's talk about the other versions of the game. The Dreamcast release seems to be mostly the same, but supposedly the control is worse. I can't say that for sure because I haven't played it, but that seems to be the consensus among reviewers. The N64 version has a different, and in my opinion, nowhere near as good soundtrack, and lacks the FMV cutscenes. The PlayStation controller is also built much better for this game in particular, when compared to this thing. And the PC and Mac versions are probably both good, but I haven't played them, so don't quote me. Anyway, based on my limited research and experience, the PS1 version seems to be the best, so that's the one I recommend. Now let's check out the version on Game Boy Color, which, unsurprisingly, is a totally different game than its console and computer counterparts. It's a 2D side-scroller, and the first thing you'll notice is that the controls are beyond awkward. Much like the first Toy Story game on the original Game Boy, jumping is like being on the moon, and as a shitty bonus, jumping and running and climbing are all mapped to the B button. This is a game that really bit off more than it could chew. What's more, I had no idea what I was doing in the first level of the game and had to consult an online walkthrough. Maybe I'm just stupid, but seriously, how am I to know to repeatedly mash the B button while riding on the toy car to do Buzz's signature falling with style move? That's literally the only objective in the first level, by the way. The only other things to do are to climb around and collect coins, which have no bearing on beating the level and are wholly unnecessary unless you want to earn a Buzz Lightyear coupon. What purpose they serve, if any, I didn't play long enough to find out. This is just bad. I cannot put into words how awkward and sloppy the controls are. There aren't nearly enough buttons on the Game Boy Color to achieve the control scheme they were going for. Also, why are friendly characters apparently enemies in this game? Why am I hurt by touching Rex, and Ham, and the Pizza Planet aliens? And some enemies just seem impossible to hit. Unbelievably, you can't fire your laser while jumping. How is it even possible to get through here without taking damage? So the third level was the last one I played. I made it to the end of it, but there was nowhere to go. How to progress, I have no idea. Probably have to do some convoluted bullshit that I don't have the patience for. Not in a game as lousy as this. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed playing Toy Story 2 for the PlayStation, or at least more than I enjoyed playing Toy Story 2 for the Game Boy Color. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you think I earned it, and to subscribe and ring the bell if you'd like to keep up with future videos. This has been a Leaky Faucet review. Thanks so much for watching.